All right. It is a couple minutes after 1 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our little afternoon minEASE session where we're going to talk today about the processes avoiding, replacing, reissuing warrants. So the purpose of this particular session is we're going to go a little dig a little more into some of the county specific processes. And so if you're in a district that we don't host or is outside of Maricopa County, you're going to see similarities, but your processes may be slightly different. So if your process is different, don't worry about it. That's just the way county does things. So we have some very specific forms that need to be filled out and some very specific processes need to be filled out. So we're going to go through that as well as going into School ERP Pro and looking at what buttons need to be clicked and what does what and what kind of different scenarios could happen for voiding, reissuing, and replacing warrants. So my name is Mike Martinez. I'm the Financial Systems Operations Manager over at the Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office. You're not going to hear a whole lot from me this afternoon. I am actually going to be turning almost the entirety of this presentation over to Ms. Andy De La Rosa, who will go ahead and introduce herself before we get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy De La Rosa. I work here at the Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office, and I am in FSS, Financial System Support. So I'm sure I've spoke to several of you when you call into the office or responded to emails that you send into our office. I do system support most of the time. If you get a response from the finance desk, which is what we will go over, it's coming from me. So we're gonna go over void stop reissues. We'll go over a few different scenarios that come into our office and what is required for reissues, what's not required. But for the first scenario I'm gonna go over is if your district has a warrant that's lost. So say you paid a vendor, an employee, and they call you and say, "Hey, I haven't received this check. It's been a month now." You want to submit the void stop request form. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay, so the form that you'll want to submit if you need us to place a stop on a warrant because a warrant is voided, or I'm sorry, is lost. Nobody knows where it's at, and the vendor is requesting a reissue. You'll need to start off here by completing this void stop request form. And this is what the form looks like. It is available on our website, or we can email it to you. And I'll go over our website where you can find these forms. But on the form, attached to the form, are the instructions. A lot of people miss that. But these are the instructions on what is required to place a stop on a warrant or even to void. When you complete the form, please complete the entire form. Make sure you include your district name and number, the person who's filling out the form, and their email address, because then our office will send an email to that person letting them know a stop has been completed on our end. If you have the original warrant, you're going to check the box here. If it's a lost warrant, you're going to check these boxes here, especially if you're going to request a reissue from us. You're going to enter the warrant number, which is the 3700 number that shows up at the top right of the actual warrant. You're going to enter the date of the warrant, the amount, and the payee, the vendor that's on the warrant. Then you're going to select here to the far right whether it's a void, stop, reissue. Now, if it's a lost warrant, it's going to be a stop. If it's a stop and reissue, make sure you select your stop and reissue. And in the notes section here, be as detailed as possible. It'll help us making sure that we are placing the correct stop on the warrant or just a straight void. So here you can put down in here, please stop warrant, warrant was lost, vendor needs a reissue, something to that effect. And then you'll need a district approver. So that could be your district administrator, and then date it. Then you're going to email it to the finance desk. Once our office receives it, then we're going to go into the treasurer's and make sure that we place a stop on that warrant. So if it's a reissue, there's going to be some required documents that we need from you to be able to process the reissue. One of them is going to be the affidavit. And again, I'll direct you guys where to find these forms on our website. So the affidavit will need to be completed, signed and notarized. So this would be the name of the vendor or employee, the date that's on the warrant, and everything needs to match. So if it doesn't match, it's gonna get kicked back. The amount, the person who's signing the warrant is gonna sign the affidavit, and then this is the information where the notary is gonna complete with their seal. You scroll down a little ways, you want to make sure you put the warrant number. Again, it's the 3700 number that's on the top right-hand corner of the warrant, the date, and then this reason of original issue of warrant, it has to be selected. So if it's a payroll warrant, select payroll. If it's for any other services, it's usually going to be for services or goods furnished, and then any other information here. Along with the affidavit, we also need a vendor letter from the vendor, and it cannot be an email from the vendor. It has to be a vendor letter on the vendor's letterhead, and the person who signed the affidavit cannot be the same person signing the letter unless they are the owner. If they are the owner, the letter must state that they are the owner. So like in the letter, it's going to say, I, Andy De La Rosa, owner of ABC Supply, is requesting a reissue of warrant number, whatever the case may be. But it will need to state that, because it's not just us that rejects it. It's going to be the clerk of the board when we submit this paperwork over to them for the reissue. So if that is not correct, you'll get an email from the finance desk saying, hey, we can't submit this reissue yet. There's a few things that needs to be corrected. We either need a new vendor letter, or we need a new affidavit. And other reasons why it could be rejected is, let's say, someone in your office fills out the affidavit, but yet an administrative assistant signs the vendor letter. An administrative assistant can't sign the vendor letter. It would have to come from a manager, owner, vice president, executive director. It'd have to be someone higher up to sign the vendor letter. The other thing is, if an administrative assistant signs the affidavit and gets it notarized, then the vendor letter will need to be from that administrative assistant's manager. And in that letter, it must state that if I sign the affidavit, then Mike would write the vendor letter saying, Andy De La Rosa is an authorized representative of ABC Supply Company. Please, we are requesting a reissue of warrant number, blah, blah, blah. So then once we get those required documents, we're going to submit that with the void stop request, the affidavit, and the vendor letter to the clerk of the board. And that process can take probably around maybe 3 business days. Sometimes we get a quick response back from them. And once it's been stopped, we email whoever is on the void form, whoever's listed here. You're going to get an email from the finance desk letting you know we have placed a stop on the warrant and paperwork has been submitted to the clerk of the board for a reissue. Once you get that email for us, you do not want to void that warrant in your system. You're going to leave it as is until you receive the reissue check from our office. And once that's completed, then that's it. You don't have to do anything in your system. Now, if it's a straight void or stop with no reissue, we will email you. Then we will tell you in that email that you can now void that warrant in your system. And I'll go over that process as well, what it looks like for those that are new to having to void warrants in your system. So in this scenario is if it's a void or stop and a reissue, those are the required documents that we need, which is going to be the void stop form, the affidavit, and the vendor's letter on vendor letterhead.
So there were a couple questions that came up. So I want to make sure we stop and make sure we're all clear on what's going on. So the main purpose of the vendor letter is from someone authorized at the company, at the vendor that you're dealing with. The vendor letter states that whoever is submitting the affidavit for reissue is an authorized person to do so. So you just can't have, say, Mary at Home Depot, we lost a check, and Mary puts in a request that says, we lost a check, please reissue it. We need Home Depot, someone of authority at Home Depot on letterhead to send to us that says, yes, Mary is an authorized person because she is our accounts receivable person or our accounts payable person. So that's the purpose of that vendor letter. Another question here. Do you feel it best practice to have a stop payment issued on a lost warrant regardless of the amount? We issue stop payments if any time that we don't have control of that warrant. So if we don't have the warrant and the district does not have that warrant and we don't know where it is, it's a stop payment. As long as that warrant is out there and we don't have control or have it in hand, we're going to put a stop payment on it all the time. And there is a fee for it. The treasurer absorbs that fee for us, so we don't worry about it too much. If it requires a stop, we'll put a stop on it. So another question, is this form used for pilot schools? We currently use an Excel file. This form is specifically for our office at the Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office. We created this form for our use to help keep track and to list all the things for us. So if you want to steal a copy of it, yeah, just swap out the logo. We don't care. No idea is too good to not steal. So if you have a form that you use, by all means, go ahead and use it. If you have like a Google form that you want to use or a user-defined form, go ahead, whatever. As long as you can keep track of it, as long as you're comfortable with it, that's perfectly fine. What type of letter, if any, would you need if it is a reissue for an employee for payroll? Employees do not need a vendor letter. Employees only need the affidavit because the check is payable to the employee as opposed to an entity like a vendor. So Mike Martinez, the person, just has to sign an affidavit, notarized affidavit that says, I lost my check. Please send me a new one. Mike Martinez, the representative of the county superintendent's office, needs a letter from the county superintendent that says Mike is authorized to request this reissue. So only for payroll, all you need is an affidavit. Those are really pretty easy to do. How long should we wait before we process the stop payment? I would usually say banks will typically say 7 to 10 days. I believe 7 to 10 days. We try not to put a stop payment on too early because then it seems like when people rush to do things like that, they normally call us the next day and say, "Hey, guess what just showed up in the mail?"
Oops,
so
sorry, too late.
Yeah. So try and make them wait a little bit. Try to make 7 to 10 days is pretty standard verbiage to use if someone asks for a stop and then a reissue on that. So that's what I would say. And what if a vendor refuses to return an affidavit? This happens all the time. So if you have a big company like a Walmart, a Home Depot, literally any garnishment vendor out there will not submit an affidavit, will not submit a letter to you. That's fine. Here's the workaround for it. You do not do the stop and reissue request. What you do is you submit for a straight void of the check. You go turn around after it's voided, after we void it at the treasury system and we give you a notification that the warrant is voided, then you're going to go into School ERP Pro. You will void the check in there, and then you will go ahead and reissue that check for them on a new voucher. That's your option. That is also, in my opinion, the fastest way to resolve the situation. Here's the thing. Checks that we issue out of the county superintendent's office or out of any county superintendent's office are county checks. They're not district checks. These are county checks, and they are done on county funds. And we, as a county office, we issue them. So we have to follow the county process for doing these kind of things. And For a county our size, sometimes it's a little bit cumbersome. Trust me, they're a lot better now than what COVID was. The coolest thing to happen to county paperwork in a long time, because we could just scan things and send them over and not have to worry about paper forms at all. But that's a county process that we have to follow. So if we have vendors that not going to do that for one reason or another, and it, like I said, there are certain types of vendors that you will never get an affidavit from. Some, like for example, if you get from Gerstel Law Company and say, hey, we didn't get a garnishment check, you're not going to hear from them ever again, except for they just give us more money, just give us our money. That's just the way they are. Just void the check, have the check voided, and just reissue on a new voucher, and you should be okay. Are there going to be notes from this? I can't write fast enough to keep up. No, there's not going to be notes from this. We will, however, as typical, we will put a recording from this on our YouTube. We have 4 scenarios that we've kind of outlined in this mini session so that we can bookmark to them. One of our main intents for this is to actually record a video that if anyone has questions, we can send them the link to this video, just to kind of explain the process, what happens. So don't worry, they'll have a recording for you guys. If you don't get the notes in, we'll likely have that recording probably early next week. What do we do if we process a void reissue and receive the original physical warrants months later? That happens. If at all possible, we will find the original paperwork that we filed away in our drawer here, and we will staple it to that paperwork and just put it in a drawer. And then we're not going to touch it again. Just file it away. Just file it away. You could probably make an argument, since you've already voided and reissued it, you could probably make an argument to go ahead and destroy that. We err on the side of keep everything because our records retention lady is very adamant about not destroying stuff. So we just kind of file it away. Beatrice, if you were on this call, don't worry. We got your back, girl. All right. What if it's from a... Go ahead. Okay, sorry. What if it is from a prior year and the encumbrance is closed? Well, it's current year now. So if any item from a prior year and you're already past the encumbrance, you will have to void it in the current. I mean, you can still follow the process because this is a bank transaction. This is a treasury transaction. You still follow a lot of these processes. If we reissue, you don't have to do anything in School ERP Pro. We'll just handle that outside of the system. It's like the equivalent of we're going to issue a manual check to replace the one that was lost. If you're not in a situation where you can do that, you're going to have to issue that check out of your current year, void the check and void the existing check in your current year, or void and replace in the current year. So there's no way around that. You would only, if you can void it in the year that it was issued, that would be cool. But if you're past that timeline, I mean, you can, if you're, well, I mean, yeah, all right. Never mind. I'm not going to tell you because that's just going to make it worse. But just void it in the current year, and you may have to do a manual journal entry if you do it in the current year. So that's that. A lot of good questions, guys.
A lot of good questions.
We will stop after like every little scenario here just to kind of sweep up these questions because they're coming in pretty hot and heavy here. So.
Oh, good. I can't see them because I've got the screen up.
Kelly said you can void in a prior year, but you have to do J in the new year. So there's a timing issue of it. And the only reason I'm going to say take care with that is because especially if you're working with a county office and we're doing reconciliation, we don't want that stuff happening in a prior year if we've already closed that month and move on. So double check. There are finance implications on the finance side when you do things like that, because when you void a warrant, it always dates that journal entry with the actual date of the warrant. So you have to, and unless you manually go in there and change that. So there's some kind of tweaks to it and everything like that. So just be careful about that. That kind of gets into the weeds there. Good questions. All right. Andy?
That's it?
Yep,
Okay.
I think that's it for now. We'll
Good
sweep
job,
up after we
guys.
finish the next scenario.
All right. So basically to finish up this scenario is if a district wants to reissue on the district's end, then we would still have to place a stop or void with the treasurer's office. You will then get an email from us letting you know you can void it in your system. And once we do that, we won't need an affidavit or a vendor letter if the district is going to reissue. You would just do a void in the system, and then you would reissue it on your end, whether it be on a new voucher, or into a replacement period. And I will also go over that with you as we move forward. So that is scenario one. Scenario two, if the district has possession of a warrant and needs to be voided, you're going to submit the void stop form again. Submit the original warrant with that paperwork into our office, because like Mike said, we like to keep that on file, all the backup documentation. So send that over with your void stop request form, and then we place a stop void on the warrant. Yes.
Are you changing your screen? I think you're frozen.
Am I? Can you see my mouth?
I see I'm looking at the lost affidavit form right now. Okay. All right, cool.
Oh, I wasn't moving. I was just talking.
Your face is frozen on your video, so I'm just wondering if everything else is frozen.
I hope it doesn't look all crazy.
Yes, it looks horrible. It's going to be your new profile picture on everybody's phone from here on out.
Stop. Okay. So that's the second one. It's just a straight void. If the district decides to reissue, the district is going to reissue on their end. But we do ask districts not to void it in your system, knowing that you want us to void it at the treasurer. We want to void it at the treasurer first, and then once you get word from our office to void it in your system, then that's your green light. Okay, I'm cleared to void it in your system or in the district system. The third scenario is if the warrant has gone stale. And that's happened several times where the warrant is no longer valid because it has gone stale, and they usually are not redeemable after a year. And that is ARS 15999. Stale warrants funds should be posted as revenue to Fund 0011980. Reissues are not required by law. However, most districts will have a policy on how to handle stale warrants. If the district reissues, it can be done on purchasing and payables on a new voucher, and then the treasurer will flag warrant as a stale at the end of the month in which it would go stale. The next one is.
Let's hold on for a second here. So Are we on to the next scenario?
Yes, we're going to move on to the next.
All right. So let's chat about the stale warrants really quick, because we get a lot of questions on these. In state law, in the Arizona Revised Statutes, there is a specific carve out for warrants that are issued by a school district. That is under 15-999, and it states any warrant issued by a school district that is over a year old is no longer enforced and no longer payable, and the district is no longer required to reissue it if you choose not to. So our office, as part of our processes, we get a list. We pull a list of warrants from the treasurer every day. At the end of the month, the treasurer will mark stale any warrant that would have gone stale during that month. So say it's July 24th. So let's say you have a warrant that was issued July 17th of 2023. So technically it went stale July 17th this year. The treasurer is not going to mark that stale until July 31st. That's just part of our treasurer's month-end processing. So they mark that stale. What happens on our system is we import that information. We see that the item is stale. We automatically generate a revenue journal entry for the school district to post that back to M&O, Object Code 1980, and then push that out for the district. And then we flag that warrant as stale, and then we're not reissuing it. If someone comes back to you, and sometimes it's an employee, but usually it's a vendor, someone comes back to you and says, listen, I have this warrant. It's really, really old. We will look it up in the system. The moment we see that it says stale, everything stops. There's nothing we can do for it. We can't reissue it. There's nothing we can do at all. at the county end about reissuing that warrant. It is up to the district, and then usually I hear that they see these policies at the district side, whether or not it needs to go to the board, or the board has already given authorization to the district to reissue warrants if they're stale up to a certain point. That is a district policy. But the way we usually see that implemented is the district will have a policy. If it's stale and it's X number of days or X number of months after it's gone stale, the district could reissue as an accounts payable check or a purchasing and payable check on a voucher. Just put the vendor in there if they're not already in there. Put them in there as a vendor. Do the rec, do the PO, issue a check out for them for the payment of that prior year's the prior year ones you just voided. So. That's it. There's not a whole lot to it, and I just want to make sure there's no confusion on how some of those processes work. It's not that we don't want to, but if you see something, if you get something in hand and it's over a year old, just assume that you're running out of time to do anything with it. That's also one of the reasons why we implemented processes that we actually check. We make sure our districts are checking 60 days before the end of before that stale period comes up to like notify people, hey, you have a warrant that may be going stale here within 60 days. Because realistically speaking, if it's not cashed within 30 to 60 days, someone's lost it probably. So make sure you check on those stale warrants. It will definitely save you a lot of trouble down the line if you can catch those early and get in touch with that vendor and say, hey, I noticed you haven't cashed this check. Just checking in and make sure you haven't lost it, especially if it is a payroll vendor, or if it's an employee, because wages are kind of special. So you want to make sure that you're paying employees the wages that they have earned, because you've already reported those on the W-2. And if it's a payroll vendor, you want to make sure that they're cashing your checks, because the last thing you want is for something to get canceled for your district, or especially we've seen a lot of this happen with. Unfortunately, I think the number one type of vendor we have this happen with is going to be garnishment vendors, because they have these stacks of checks coming in and they're in a drawer or they're in a safe somewhere, and they forget they had to have them in there. And if they go stale, there's not a whole lot you can do within the system to reissue that. So just follow up with them, make sure that everyone has their warrants and that they're clearing them in a timely fashion. Yes, Kelly's comment is, I'm amazed at the number of times I have to beg someone to cash their paycheck. Not everybody is independently wealthy, unfortunately. So most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So let me give a big thumbs up for, hey, it's payday. I can eat this week. All right. Hey, Deadpool comes out on Friday. So everybody in my house is excited about that. And it happens to be payday for the kids this week, so they're happy to get to go see that. So go have a good time with that paycheck. You've earned that money, go spend it. But that's it. That's all the questions. There were a couple questions I answered in the chat. Is the PO opened back up when a check is voided? No, voiding a check has no impact on the PO whatsoever. The money just gets reverted back into the district funds. So if you need to reopen that PO to issue a new invoice or recreate an invoice, then that may be something that you have to do. But avoiding a check does not impact the PO. I may have missed it, but what if it is a parent refund? Parent refund is really no different than any other vendor check. The parent is a vendor as far as the system and the bank is concerned. So if it is a parent refund and they haven't cashed a check, again, they're still beholden to the same rules. They have to cash it within a year. If they lose it, then they have to fill an affidavit, just like anybody else. All right. Lots of good questions. There's probably more questions in the first half of this thing than all of the past 5 minis we had. So, all right, Andy, carry on.
All right. Okay, so now the fourth scenario is going to be a direct deposit reversal. I know sometimes that can seem tricky for districts. So when you email finance desk and say, hey, I have a direct deposit reversal that we'd like to submit. Payday is tomorrow or payday is later on this week. We can submit it for you. But what we will need is, this is another form, is the ACH reversal deletion form request. Again, we'll need the district information and the contact information on the form. Can you guys can see my reversal form, Mike?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So you're going to enter the employee's name, the employee's routing and account number, the pay date. Be sure that the pay date is correct when you're filling out the form. And we would need their net pay, not their gross, but their net. And then select a reason. These are the reasons that we have to select when we're going into JP Morgan Chase to submit the reversal. These are the options we have to choose. And then you're no. And then you're going to select whether it's a county reissue or not. If this is not correct, if the pay date or net is not correct from what we can see in JP Morgan Chase, our office is going to kick it back to you and say, hey, this needs to be corrected. We don't see a direct deposit for this amount because you happen to enter the gross pay. We'll need to see the exact information that we see in JP Morgan Chase. Again, once it's completed, you're going to send it off to the finance desk. And you'll see here on under the notes here, any request submitted at least 2 business days prior to the settlement date will be processed as an ACH deletion request, and verification will be available on the settlement date. If the deletion request fails, then we will respond. Then we will process I can't speak. Then we will reprocess as an ACH reversal. And then for ACH reversal requests, we say 3 business days for verification that the funds have been returned. So once you submit it, we'll put it in through JP Morgan Chase, and within 3 business days, we'll go and verify that that reversal was successful. And then we'll notify you the contact information on the reversal form that it has been successful, and to be sure to take any credits once you void it in your system. So you get an email from us saying the reversal has been successful. Then you'll go into your system to void that direct deposit, and then grab any credits on your next full payroll. And I'll go over that too. The other is if the reversal fails. So we will also notify you if the reversal fails. If it fails, then the district will need to recoup those funds from the employee. If you are going to reissue, if the district is going to reissue after the reversal has been completed and you want to reissue into a replacement period, that can be done as well. And I will now go into the system to kind of walk you through what that looks like. But before, so these forms, the deletion, the ACH reversal deletion, the void stop request form, and the affidavit, you can find that on our website. I'm going to go just start in the beginning. Here's our website, schoolsoup.org. You're going to go under districts, school finance, thinking. And if you scroll down, it's going to be under payroll and accounts payable services. And under warrant processing, there are the forms. The lost warrant with the instructions, the affidavit, the void stop warrant form, and the reversal form. You can access these from our website, or you can always email the finance desk, and we'll send the form out to you.
Cool. So let's go back. Let's take a look at the ACH reversal deletion request. So let's just kind of go into a little more depth here. So what is the difference between an ACH deletion versus an ACH reversal? So here's the difference. An ACH deletion happens before that transaction is sent off to your employee's bank. So you're generating an ACH or a direct deposit file. You send that off to the bank. You realized something is messed up in there. Maybe you paid an employee too much, or maybe you paid someone that shouldn't have been paid at all, right? And payday is next week. You're sending it off early. So if we catch it in time, and if we're fast enough, we can sometimes do an ACH deletion, which we can reach out to the bank, we insert a transaction, and what will happen is that they will actually remove that transaction from that ACH batch so that it never goes to the employee's bank at all. The downside for that is we won't find out if it was successful or not until the actual settlement date or the pay date that is on that file. So if your pay date is the 25th tomorrow, so if your payday is the 25th and we send off a ACH deletion, we will log into the bank on the 25th and see whether or not that deletion was successful or not. The problem with that, there's such a tight timeline for school districts, for anybody really, to process payroll, and the banks have gotten so much faster at processing these files. Unless you're submitting that transaction several days in advance, it makes it very difficult to get a successful ACH deletion out of there. So those are really relatively rare. And we usually see, if we're successful, it's usually right around the holidays when districts are submitting like 1, 2, 3 different payrolls back to back to back to back because they know they're not going to come into work for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Those are instances where we can usually get an ACH deletion taken care of. Now, ACH reversal happens when the transaction is sent, the ACH file is uploaded to the bank, transaction is sent out to the employee's bank, and then a reversal is a second transaction that our bank sends that pulls that money back. So if you send $1,000 to Andy De La Rosa at her bank account at Wells Fargo, an ACH reversal is going to say, pull $1,000 from Andy's Wells Fargo account and put it back in our account. The way our bank works, and this is not going to be for everybody because we're on a county banking contract, so it's a little bit different. But the way our bank works is anytime we submit a reversal, we are given a provisional credit by JPMC. So we actually see a credit on our account the moment we put in that reversal. We wait 3 days, and this is on the bank's. This is on the bank recommendation. The bank has recommended to wait 3 days after that reversal is done to make sure that that provisional credit actually stays and that item doesn't get bounced back to us. And an item can be bounced back for any number of reasons. Typically, number one is just the money's not there. It's NSF. Employee saw the money, immediately withdrew it out of there, and then ghosted us, and you never hear from them again, right? That happens. That is 90% of the transactions or the rejections that we get for ACH reversals. There are other reasons, such as there can actually, we've seen transactions where the employee refused the transaction. We've seen employee bank accounts that are set up to not allow those kind of debit transactions on there. So there could be any number of reasons why those happen, but they do happen. So we do make our employees make the employees will wait 3 days. So that's why that process takes so long, because we have to verify that we get those funds back before we can turn around and tell the district, yes, you can void this direct deposit, or yes, we can issue a manual check. So those are a lot of banking timelines around there. So there's the skinny. All right, Andy, why don't you show us what it looks like in School ERP Pro?
Okay. Minimize this. I'm gonna close out my windows because I wanted to start from the beginning. When your district decides they want to do a direct deposit reversal, make sure you are communicating with that employee that reversal is going to happen, because a lot of times districts will submit the form and we submit the reversal and the employee has no idea that that's going to happen and they spend it. So then the district's out of that money. And another thing is once we let you know that the reversal has been completed and it's been successful, sometimes the district wants to quickly turn around and pay the employee again because it's the direct deposit. The employee needs the money. You don't want to jump to that yet until you get word from our office that was successful. All right, so we're going to go into general ledger. If this was a vendor that you need to void. And I'm just going to pick the first one. Arizona Department of Education. The void has been completed with our office. We email you, let you know, hey, it's okay to void this warrant in your system. And always verify that the warrant number matches what you sent to our office. And you can find that warrant number all at the very end here. Oh, this one has not been printed. I don't know, is it going to let me actually void that one? Let's move on to this second one.
I don't know. Pick another one.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the second one.
Just to be safe.
All right, so then you're going to highlight your warrant. You're going to go to Actions, Void Check. Here's the check you want to void. You're voiding it today. Issued there, whatever. You are not going to, even if you're going to reissue it, you do not want to select the reissue check. The reissue check for our districts that we host, we print your check, so you will not select this. And for districts who print their own checks, you will reissue, you will check the reissue checkbox. Correct, Mike? For only districts who print their own?
Yeah, if you are a pilot district or accounting responsibility district, you can choose the option to reissue the check. Everybody else should not, is what it comes down to. And that's only if you actually need to reissue the check. So if they lost it and you put a stop on it with a bank and now you need to reissue it, you can come in here and you can reissue it if you're a county responsibility or a pilot district. Everyone else just leave that blank.
Yeah, because if you do check it, for our districts, if you do check it and you click OK, you're going to see another record out here as if it's still out there ready to pay. And then you're calling our office saying, hey, I voided this check. Then we kind of have to go in on the back end and kind of trick the system to make sure it's void. It shows void in your system. But if this was a straight void, no reissue needed, you're just going to, again, highlight your record, actions, void warrant, enter your information, and OK. You're going to get a journal entry, print, save your journal entries, and you're done.
Can you go back to those reports really quick?
Yep.
All right, see this void report? You better look at it really close because you will never, ever see it again. If you do not save this report, there's no way to bring it back up. Do you need it? That's entirely up to your district as to whether or not that's paperwork you want to keep, because it's just it's a paper report of a process that you already have in the system. So if your district has a policy to keep those, and then you want to file them away with your information, like all the paperwork that you kept with all your void information, yeah, go ahead and print that out. But if you miss this report and don't print it, you can't get it back. You can reprint the journal entries by going into General Ledger and one of the journal entry reports. You can reprint those. Those are easy. But the void report is one of those only reports that if you don't get it at that time, it's gone forever. There you go.
Forever. All right. Now we're going to move on to if we were to void a direct deposit direct deposit once it's been successful. Somebody have a question? Thought I heard somebody talking. So we're going to go pull up an employee in payroll, employees, and in employee maintenance. And I'm going to kind of go back and forth a bit. I'm going to pull up Bob Apple. I'm going to bring up his payroll journal. We're going to select payroll or pay period 10. If it was just going to be a straight void, the reversal was successful, I'm ready to void it in my system. I'm going to go into actions, void direct deposit /0 net pay. You're going to follow the screens that are going to come up, but I'm not going to complete it yet because then I'm going to go in as if I'm going to reissue a direct deposit. And to reissue a direct deposit, because one of the screens that will come up is into a replacement period, you'll have to create a dot pay period. So for those payroll departments, that need to complete this step, they're going to have to add a dot pay period. And that is done through payroll, configuration, calendars, pay cycles. I'm going to open up your pay cycle. And I'm going to go down where pay period 10 is. I'm going to create a 10.1.
And this, again, is only if you're going to reissue that direct deposit. If you're not going to reissue, you don't need to do this.
Right. But you'll see the dates here. Once I enter 10.1 and I hit my tab key, you're going to see these dates change because it's going to default to the start and end dates and the pay date of pay period 10. I'm done there. I created my dot pay period. I'm going to close it. Now I'm going to go back in.
It's the same process for if you have a payroll warrant that you want to void into a new pay period. It's the same process in there. You need to create that dot or that off cycle pay period. You can only void into a pay period if it's not on a work calendar. So what you have to do is you create that sort of off-cycle pay period, and so when Andy's going to go through his process right now, you're going to see what that looks like when we see that screen.
All right, so we're going to get ready to void this direct deposit. No. Wait, was it 9? I thought it was 10. Why is it not letting me? Okay. Go pick on somebody else.
Yeah, that employee looks like it's messed. This is the training database, so it's a little screwy, and it gets even more screwier because we had to go through and change all the names and social security numbers and accounts and stuff like that. So.
Oh, what am I doing? I'm in. We'll see if. All right. So then I'm going to select my replacement period, and I can see the 10.1 that I just created. I'm going to select that. I'm going to click OK. This will void the current pay period. Do you want to proceed? Yes. Read your little pop-up messages. Create your journal entries. There we go. And like Mike said, you can always go back and look up this journal entry in General Ledger. And then it'll create the new direct deposit for 10.1.
Someone asked the question on here, when reissuing an old payroll check, do we need to recreate a payroll in a past period? You don't need to. It is, I mean, ideally you want that pay period to occur within at least the same quarter that the original occurred, as long as it hasn't gone stale. And as long as you're within the same fiscal year and have the ability to process those vouchers. So if you're reissuing a payroll that that an employee lost, maybe it's a lost check, and that check was like March 3rd. Well, I would maybe create that off cycle or that dot pay period as like March 4th or something like that. That way, at least the reissue is within the same period or the same quarter. So all your quarterlies are all still the same. And I mean, as long as you're within the same fiscal year or have the ability to process the vouchers within that same fiscal year, reporting wise, that would be the ideal way to do it. Can you do it in current year with a current date? Yes, you can. But it does get a little messy because then now your quarterlies are off. And then now, especially if you cross the calendar year, and then now are your W-2s off. So Try to, if you have to reissue a payroll check that's lost or that's messed up, try to issue it with an off-cycle pay period that's pretty close to when you originally issued it, if at all possible. All right, Andy.
All right. So then if you want, you could also go into once you void. Did I got Candy Apple? Yes. Let's go look at her position. We're going to go into the distribution. And you'll see pay period 10 as if it never happened. But you see her 10.1. Just some little area to go look at. I think that's it. Any other questions? I did not think this was going to go an hour, and it did.
So there is one last question. Could you issue an old payroll check via an AP check? So yes, but I would really limit that to mainly if it went stale. If at all possible, payroll checks should be issued out of payroll. There's obviously, we can't go into every scenario that's going to happen. But as a general, payroll checks come out of payroll, vendor checks come out of AP, things like that. So is that 100% steadfast and written in stone? Absolutely not. Cause there's always some weird issue that comes up, and you really kind of have to think it through. So if you have any questions, I mean, we'd be happy to take a call and to talk you through it a little bit. I mean, there's plenty of times where like Jill or Andy or Annette will come into my office and we're like, hey, I got a question and we want to bounce off you. And we just kind of walk through the scenario. That kind of stuff happens relatively often. And believe me when I say that we are very, I guess what you say, well-seasoned employees. So we've been around a long time and seen a lot of things, but there's always something new that pops up. So if you have any questions, don't feel like you can't ask somebody. Absolutely ask somebody, and we'll try and walk through it with you. So good questions, though. A lot of good questions in this. All right, Andy, is that it? Are we done? Did we get through all of them?
We did.
Awesome. Heck yeah.
We sure did.
All right, guys. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to go. You may go ahead and reach out to us. You can either reach out to our financial system support at fss@maricopa.gov, or our finance desk, which deals specifically with all the warrants and stuff that we talked to today, which is really just Andy. It's finance desk at maricopa.gov. We will put this recording on YouTube, so if you want to have a chance to take a look at it later, I know we covered a lot of information. Like Andy said, this went on a lot longer than we thought it was going to be, because we figured we were like a half an hour and then we're done. But everyone has great questions, so thank you very much for being attentive, being interactive. It's great listening to all of you guys. So if there's no other questions, I wish you all to have a great, what's today, Wednesday? Have a great Wednesday. Have a great rest of the week. Hopefully you all have recovered from ASBO by now. I know I'm still trying to. So I'm looking forward to some good rest this weekend. So have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you next time.